Last week we answered a whole bunch of questions you had about iPhoto. Today I'm going to try and look at a few things that you didn't ask. So all the missing things from your questions last week. One area we didn't focus on last week was how to edit a photo once it's imported. iPhoto is great for storing your photos, but it's also great at editing photos. It has a lot of the same features that Photoshop has. Alright, let's start by taking a look at this picture right here of a lemur. When you double click it, it zooms in and you can view it. If you want to edit it, you can go ahead and push this pencil at the bottom. And that brings up a lot of the tools you see here at the bottom. One thing often you might want to do is crop a picture. And if I go ahead and push the crop button here, I can change the framing of this picture. One advantage iPhoto has over Photoshop is once I've applied this, I can come back in a few minutes or in days or weeks from now, and I can always revert this back to the way it was before. So I've cropped that. If I right click on it now, I can just say revert to original, and I'm back to the original photo. So that's one nice thing about iPhoto. You don't have to worry about destroying your photos. I'm going to click edit again. I can rotate it here with the rotate button. I can straighten it as well. If I feel like the lemur's on a bit of a tilt, I just push the straighten button and I can lean it one way or the other until I'm happy. And say done. And now I've edited that. I'm going to say edit again, and there's also this magic enhance button. You can push that, and often it'll brighten colors, it'll bring detail out of shadows and all that sort of stuff. But here's where it can get a little more advanced. There's obviously red eye. Now I don't know how this will work on our lemur, but we could give this a shot. Look at that. It gave him giant pupils. Interesting. But there's more advanced things as well. For example, there are some effects. If I click on effects here, I can make it sepia tone. I can make it look antique. I can make it a color boost. Or I could go back to my original. I can fade the color. I can make it black and white. I can go back to my original. I can put a matte in, which means sort of a white outline. Go back to my original. I can add a vignette, which is similar to a matte but with black. I can blur the edges a little bit, which is hard to see in this photo, but if I push it a lot, you can see what it does. Go back to and you can always click and go back to the original. Okay. Now the more advanced adjustment. If I click here on adjust, I can do things like change my exposure. I can underexpose or overexpose my picture. You can see that when you overexpose it, it destroys some of the information in the photo and makes it sort of that white color. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but there's this graph at the top, and that's called a histogram. And you can see when I raise the exposure, some of that information is being cut off. And so that can actually brighten things up, but the more and more you go, it destroys the information in the photo until you're left with just a horrible mess. So you have to be careful with that. You can change your contrast, so very bright whites and very dark blacks, or go the opposite and get more of a gray. Here you can change your saturation. I can make my colors. If you take a look at the reddy orange color here, as I crank the saturation, you can see how vibrant that color gets. And if I go the opposite way, you can see it almost goes to black and white by the time I crank saturation the whole way down. There are these other sliders as well. There's definition. You can highlight just the shadow areas with this. Or sorry, my apologies. It works the opposite way. It brings information out of highlights. And this one brightens shadows, as you can see. So darken and brighten shadows. So if there's some information lost inside a dark area, cranking this would bring that out. You can sharpen the picture here. You can denoise it. So for example, if you took a picture in a blur and it was a bit blurry, the denoise, or if it was a bit grainy, the denoise might try and fix that for you. You can also change the temperature of the picture. Here we'll make it look colder, and here warmer. And you can also change the tint, make it green or more magenta. All right, I'm going to say reset so it doesn't change anything. Last week I showed you what Faces was, but I didn't show you what Places was. What Places is it allows you to take information that your camera stores about your GPS location, and it embeds that into the picture, and iPhoto takes that information and it places your photo onto a map. Well, not all cameras can do that. So, for example, if I were to take this picture, I know that it was taken in Turkey in a place called Goreme. And I just typed in the name, and you can see it knows that. If I go ahead and click it, it's going to put a pin right on my map, and I can say done. So now, if I go to Places, you can see that I have a photo in Goreme. If I zoom out, you can see I only have one pin right now in the whole world, but you get the idea, and it's in Turkey. Now, as I add my photos throughout the years, I can have pins everywhere. Another nice feature of this version of iPhoto is it makes it very easy to share your photos with people on the internet. So I could select a few photos that I liked, I could push Facebook, and I could set up my Facebook account where I type in my Facebook information, and then I can publish straight to Facebook. I could also publish it to Flickr, which is an online photo storage website. I could also put it on MobileMe, which is Apple's version of sort of a combination of Flickr and quite a few other services together, which would allow me to share my photos with other people around the world. So you just select the ones you want and push the button. You have to have MobileMe, Facebook, and Flickr accounts to do that, however.